Are there limits to free speech for politicians? And if there are, what are they? On Tuesday, Morten Messerschmidt, leader for Dansk Folkeparti, met Martin Lidegaard, leader for De Radikale Venstre, in a civil court in Frederiksberg. It's week 34. I'm Amos Miller, and this is the Danish press review. Last November in Randers, all of the major party leaders met for a debate. During that debate, Martin Lidegaard made comments about Dansk Folkeparti's immigration politics, which led Morten Messerschmidt to file a case of libel against Martin Lidegaard. On Tuesday, they had their day in court. For background on the case, we turn to Tobias Bundelow in Wednesday's Kristeligt Dagblad. The case rests on two statements made by Martin Lidegaard in an election debate last November. When speaking of Morten Messerschmidt and Dansk Folkeparti, Lidegaard said, "One wants to intern and deport thousands of citizens just because they have a different belief or a different skin color than the majority of us who are in this room." And the second statement, "If I understood your interview in Weekendavisen correctly, you want to intern up to 100,000 Danes if they have a different ethnic background and don't want to voluntarily leave the country because you think they should leave the country." Messerschmidt threatened Lidegaard on stage with taking him to court if he didn't retract his statements within 24 hours. Lidegaard refused, and they met in court on Tuesday. For his part, Lidegaard expressed regret that the case was before the panel of 3 judges, as reported in Wednesday's Information. From Laura Friis-Vang and Natalie Barrington-Rosendal, here he, Martin Lidegaard, also expressed that the case for him is the principle, because it deals with free speech. But on top of that, he views the whole case as a media stunt. Lidegaard, "I apologize that we must use the court's time on this. I believe this debate ought to be had in the public square." Messerschmidt used his time to describe how upset he was about Lidegaard's statements and also to defend Dansk Folkeparti against allegations of racism or ethnic and religious discrimination. Messerschmidt in Information, "It doesn't bother me which belief people have. We have religious freedom in Denmark, and I put an enormous emphasis on that." And a quote from Politiken, "I actually get sad when people try to make immigration politics about skin color." Messerschmidt also attempted to distance himself from re-immigration, the concept pushed by far-right anti-immigrant movements in Europe, which seek to expel immigrants, by force if necessary, regardless of legal status. "I've written to our Folketing delegation that we speak Danish, and we use hjemrejse, directly, home travel. It's an international concept that can be used in many contexts. That's why we talk about hjemrejse. I want to be on target with DF's politics, but I don't want to add motives that aren't mine. Therefore, we talk about hjemrejse." But as multiple papers highlight, Messerschmidt and his party's history make that formulation difficult to defend. From Anders Reder's article in Wednesday's Jyllands-Posten, the lawyer, Lidegaard's defense, pointed out that Morten Messerschmidt in 2002 was judged liable for racism. And from Dansk Folkeparti's party platform on the matter of citizenship, if the applicant, for example, isn't practicing Muslim, prays 5 times a day, fasts, wears a hijab, it should negatively affect their evaluation. Lidegaard's defense used Messerschmidt and his party's history to undermine his argument that his immigration policies have nothing to do with race or religion. The court was shown a TikTok video posted by Messerschmidt in which a well-dressed black man walks past the camera with the caption, "What would you do if I walked past you?" The video then cuts to Messerschmidt in a car rolling up the windows and locking the door. "Can that be considered racist?" asked Offerson. "No," said Morten Messerschmidt. Lidegaard's attorney wasn't convinced. He shames and ridicules, as DF's leader, people with other skin colors. That is, I'll allow myself to say, undisguised racism. In a quote back in Kristeligt Dagblad, Offerson speaking about immigrants from Middle East and North African countries. "During his whole career, he's aimed his scope against this group. His brand is constant, border-stretching, and polarizing rhetoric." The case is more than just a civil trial, it's a first in Danish politics. One politician suing another for libel about political statements. That wasn't lost on editor-in-chief for Politiken, Christian Jensen. His editorial on Wednesday, Trump's intern. Jensen critiques Messerschmidt for bringing a libel case based on political debate. Should this type of political dispute about words really be brought before a judge? No, it shouldn't. Messerschmidt's injury case is un-Danish and disturbing. Political disagreements should be fought out in the public square and not in a courtroom in Frederiksberg. Jensen sees a similarity between this move by Messerschmidt and a tactic commonly used by US President Donald Trump, namely bringing frivolous lawsuits to both draw attention as a victim and to intimidate those who may want to critique you or your political project. But regardless if Morten Messerschmidt wins his case, he'll register a victory, either over Martin Lidegaard or because, with a loss, he can say that the elite are against him and those who vote for his party. That is exactly the tactic Morten Messerschmidt attempts to copy from Donald Trump, and that's actually the most scary part of the case at Frederiksberg. The case is set to be decided on October 16th, and I'm sure the papers will have more to say between now and then. If you want to keep up with everything they have to say without subscribing to all of them, subscribe to the Danish Press Review. That's it for now. See you next week.